I have a fairly big stack of books on my desk, but it's not as big as it looks, I promise. But welcome back to another techo kaigi, the 2026 techo kaigi this time. I can't believe it's been a year since the last time, but this is going to be a long video. So settle in, grab yourself a drink, but it's going to be, you know, a classic rambly style. I'm not very concise, but I will cover all of the journals right now in the beginning. For those of you that don't want to sit through the whole video, I completely understand. So I feel like nothing too much has actually changed if you have seen the last techo kaigi, and especially since the mid-year one. I actually don't really remember what I said in the mid-year techo kaigi, but I really don't think it's like not much has changed. So I will go through what I will cover in this video for those who just want a quick summary. So here I have written number 1, the Hobonichi Cousin. I have done a video kind of doing a deep dive on how I plan on using this journal, this planner I'm using it both as a planner and a journal in 2026. So you can go see that for a more detailed kind of video walkthrough of how I plan to use it. I won't be going too much into detail in this video because I have already talked about it, and this video will probably be long enough without me talking about that. And then I've got my 5-year diary, which I will be using for the 3rd year in 2026. I started it in 2024. Then I've got my life archives, which is a kind of memory keeper. I just call it the life archives in a TN insert. And then I've got my Japanese study also in here in a TN grid insert. Well, I plan to use a grid insert once this one is done. And then I've got my commonplace journal in this hardcover moleskin, which I will share my thoughts on. And then I still have half the journal left, so I will still be using this in 2026 and have no idea if I can actually finish it next year, but I will talk about the plans for like what I plan to use after I use up this journal. And then I've got my notes journal, which is what I'm using right here for this because I've written my notes in here. And then I've got my book notes and quotes, which is technically both of these things. I would like it to be in this one. Right now I just repurposed my commonplace because I didn't like the grid size for the commonplace in here, and so that's why I moved it to here. We will talk about all that soon. I'm just trying to show you the summary quickly, but I do have kind of a book notes. I don't know if I would call it a journal, but it's just a book for book notes and quotes. Sometimes I just come across certain quotes that I want to write down, and I do have a Notion page for each book where I will write down the quotes. But something about handwriting the notes and quotes sometimes just feels like a different experience when you're reading a book, and it just feels much more, I guess, immersive. So there are some books that I am happy to just keep digital, but other books I will write in here. So it's not for every single book. It's just for the books that I feel like need a little bit more of a deep dive. And the very last one is my morning pages in the Muji. So I actually will be finished with this. Well, aiming to finish this by the end of the year. If you can see where I'm up to here, I think it's going to be a little bit too close to focus too, but where the red ribbon is where I am up to. So I have less than 30 pages left in this book, and I should be able to pretty much finish it by the end of the year. And I plan on getting another one of these books because it worked so well and ended up fitting the entire year. So this is just a Muji, I think it's called recycled paper book, but it's super affordable. So that is the list of everything if you wanted to pause and see that. And I feel like nothing really too much has changed except for the Hobonichi Cousin and maybe just swapping around some books, but that's pretty much it, I think. So this may not be, a very interesting video in terms of like new and exciting planner things. It's pretty much my same planner system, but I will still share what worked, what didn't work, kind of my takeaways from my planner system this year. So I guess the first one, we'll go in order of that list, but the very first one I will talk about is the Hobonichi Cousin. So I'm going to move everything off to, I forgot one. But technically I'm not using this book in 2026. I'm really confused about my format of this, so please bear with me. I am a very, very rambly person, and I tend not to think it like linearly. Just be warned that this is going to be the format of this video. So this Hobonichi Cousin, if you haven't seen that video, is going to be, well, I'm experimenting with this for 2026 to be my all-in-one planner. So currently I use this week planner. If you watch my planner with me, you'll recognize this. I use this for my daily to-do lists. And so it's just the week. It's a Hands, I get a lot of questions about this, but it's a Hands B6 planner, and it's actually exclusive to Hands stores in Japan. I did pick this up on my trip. I believe you can only buy it in store at Hands, but I believe Nolte has like a fairly similar, I think that's also another Japanese brand, but they have a fairly similar layout. And this worked well for me, but I also had my daily log, which is where I just kind of jot down things that happen during the day because I have terrible memory. But because I use both of these daily, I tend to keep both of these on my desk. And what I quickly realized was that it took up a lot of space. It was quite annoying to kind of, oh, I just opened to a blank page, but it's kind of annoying to just have both open. And so I felt like it worked really well. Don't get me wrong, but towards the end, I just felt like I really wanted one book open on my desk because I have a tendency to be really, really messy with my desk in terms of I just really spread out and have trouble putting things away, and just having one book open with one pen, because, you know, both of these books use different pens because this is not fountain paper friendly, but this one is, and I wanted to use that in here. Having two pens and two books, it just got a little bit overwhelming, and I think there was a bit of, I don't know what the word is, but there's a bit of like mental load in like switching, because there's a bit of effort in switching from one planner to the other. But when it's just one page open for both things, so for example, this will be a combination of both. I will write my to-do list here and then the daily log here. So literally just combining this, like one of these sections with a page. It just feels much simpler and more streamlined. And then that way I don't feel like I'm constantly checking both journals. So that was kind of my thinking with that. So this Hobonichi Cousin does replace two journals, which is very nice, but it also replaces, forgive me, I'm getting ahead of myself. I told you I'm going to be all over the place, but it does also replace this book, which I still technically have pages left in it, but I will repurpose it for other things. So I have been using this book to keep track of media that I watch or read. So it's mostly just TV shows and books. Audiobooks, I do track like a book. I just write a little A. I don't track like podcasts. I don't track like the shorter media. So podcast episodes, YouTube videos, I don't track it in here. It's mostly just the bigger media. Those little ones I will write in the daily log, but I've just been tracking it in here and it's been working really well and it's really fun. So I used to track it in Notion, but needing to open that every single day to update like an episode that I watched got a little bit tedious, but I still do track it for books. This was just a nicer visual way to see when I read something, and it's just satisfying. There's something about it that it's just fun. So I've been fairly consistent with updating this, except for dating the months. I definitely haven't done that, but I do want to continue doing this in 2026 because I had a lot of fun with it. This is this month. That's what this month looks like. I just haven't dated it again. But what I was thinking is, because I also do this pretty much daily, because the next day I will go back and write what I either finished reading so grey is a book and the red kind of burgundy is a movie or a show. But I like to track how long we took to watch a movie. It's really for no purpose other than just simple pleasure of seeing it visually. It's just a pleasure thing. So there's really no function to this other than just being able to track when I watched something. But I haven't found that I've needed to go back and refer to anything. It's just merely for my curiosity, really. So just enjoyment and curiosity. But I really do want to continue this in 2026. But I didn't want to do it in here, even though it does work. I just didn't like it as a standalone planner. But what I was thinking, if you remember from my plan with me's, again, mixing up all my planners, I didn't really use the monthly kind of overview. I would use it to plan, and that worked, but I never really needed to refer back to the month. So I'm still playing around with what I need for a month planner, because I still definitely need to plan out my month, but I don't necessarily need to go back and check. And so what I was thinking was I abandoned this. I kind of swapped these two things around, really. So in the Hobonichi Cousin, the monthly, I hope I'm making sense and not talking too fast, but there is a monthly spread in the Hobonichi Cousin. Oh, that's 2027. Why did I mark? I don't know why I marked 2027. I thought, oh no, it's for the week. Sorry. Yes. So there is a month spread, which starts in December next month. But instead of planning out my month in here and possibly never flipping back to look at it, based on my experience this year with my weekly planner, what I was thinking was using this for the media log, because I'm pretty much updating this every day, like I said, ideally every day. And so it would be kind of fun to be able to just have this all in one on my desk. And when I get back to my desk after dinner, then I just kind of fill in what we watched that day. And that would make it a little bit easier, because the one thing I've had an issue with is that I do forget to fill it out because it's just not in front of me. I need things to be in front of me, like open, for me to remember to do it. And that is why I spread out so much on my desk, because I have so many like open projects, and I feel like if I don't see it as a constant reminder, I will forget. And so I thought it was weird to do it in this planner, because this was kind of just a purely functional to-do list planner, and I felt like putting in, like, this is like memory keeping, right? You're just recording what you've watched and read. It didn't feel like it matched this planner. But because with the Hobonichi now, I am combining it and actually doing my daily log in here, and I'll be writing memories and everything. I think it really works together to have the media log in here. And so this will replace my planner. Again, this weekly planner. It'll replace my daily log. It will replace my media calendar. So it's kind of an all-in-one. But there is one revelation I recently had since filming that Hobonichi Cousin video that I talked about in my journal update for my patrons, but it also replaces another journal accidentally. I didn't mean for this to happen because this journal already works so well, but my overview planner, where am I right now? Is this the back or the front? That's the back. So I have a TN cover that is new from last time. I did get this from my last trip to Japan, which feels like a long time ago now, but it was only October last year. So I picked this up in October, and I've got my yearly overview planner in here, which is just kind of monthly goals, quarterly plan, which I never use, my why can't I think right now? My monthly stats for Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. Then I've got like books that I've read that I fell off with updating, which I'll get around to in a second. But I also did, you would have seen all this in the plan with me, but I also did kind of like monthly plans, what I enjoyed that month. It was just an overview of the month and every single, what am I saying? Let me try that again. It was an overview of the year and every month, so that I just had this little book of just things that I did that year. And at the end, I will do, 2025 in pictures. So it's kind of supposed to be a nice memory book and just a place for all my goals and plans. So this actually worked really, really well for me. It's a printable that I made. I have done the 2026 version. I've just changed all this to 2026, and I've actually reduced these lines because this is way too big. I've made it just a little bit smaller, so there's more space to write. And that's available from my shop. So I will be planning to do like a printing guide. I'm a little bit nervous about that because I don't know. I'm really bad at explaining things, if you can't tell already, but I tend to overcomplicate things. And so like, I feel like I'm just going to confuse people even more trying to explain how I printed this. But I basically just kind of unstapled the book and printed on each page and then restapled it again, if that makes sense. And that's why, some of these are really, really off, because I was fighting with my printer and I cut with a very blunt blade. So, it's a very DIY thing. I plan on doing it a little bit better for the 2026 planner, but I didn't actually need this planner anymore because there's actually space in the Hobonichi. Let me put this here for those things. So the main thing I need is a goals page, monthly goals, and like a monthly review, and maybe a list of all the books that I read. So if we go back to the beginning, we've got space here for monthly goals. That is one thing, right? But this kind of serves as like a quarterly. Like I said, a quarterly wasn't really necessary for me this year. So I will skip that and see how I go. But there is, a small amount of space at the back with a few grid pages. I could easily just divide this into 4 and create a quarterly plan here. Just something really nice and simple so it's there. And I don't know what else I would use these pages for anyway, so I think that would work. So there is that if I need, but I will write the monthly goals at the top. The bottom I am using for tracking habits, so that I can see like a visual kind of overview of how I went with those habits throughout the year, like studying Japanese, decluttering, working out. There is more, but I can't think of it right now. So that's where I will put monthly goals. And then for the month overview in terms of like things that I currently enjoyed, I am planning to put that on I don't know my way around this book, on the first page of the month. So with the Hobonichi, there is a blank page at the start of every month. And I believe people use it as like a dashboard to like decorate it for the month ahead. But what I was thinking is that I could easily just write the same things that I had in my month planner, which is the priorities for the month, what I'm currently enjoying that month, what I've been struggling with that month. This is the review part, and that's the planning part. No, that's the review part. This is the only planning part. So after the month ends is when I'd come back and fill this out. But what I currently enjoyed that month, what I struggled with that month, and some wins for the month. There is plenty of space to write that. I could split that into 4 again. Very functional. But again, this just gives me a really nice overview of my month, because I have really bad memory. And if you asked me what my February was like, I know I had a market in that month, and that's all I can really tell you. And so if I flip back to February, I now have a little summary of like the song that I was listening to, the book that I really enjoyed reading that month. I had no idea. And struggling with finding a new place. I'm currently in that new place. So that's a really nice to look back on. Other things that I struggled with. And some wins that I got accepted for this new house that I'm currently in, and being a little bit more efficient with market prep. So this one is more functional than enjoyment, because I do like to see what happened in the year, and being able to refer back to it is really nice. So like I do have like a monthly highlights at the beginning. Yes, here. So I could also combine that, because I really, really enjoy this. This really helps me reflect on my month a little bit more accurately, because this is common. I know this is common because in my business check-ins, I do monthly check-ins with my workshop patrons. We talk about how we struggle to think about the previous month because we're just so biased to how the past week or 2 weeks or even the past few days have been. And so seeing, like recapping everything that happened in the month really gives you a more complete picture. We're not so swayed by like maybe this one bad week that we're having, and we realize, we actually had like a fairly decent month. So one thing that I did kind of struggle with this was that the wins and the highlights felt really similar. And so I felt like I was writing the same thing again and again. So this actually solves my problem, because if I split this into 4 or just write it, as a list, I can just combine wins and highlights. So that actually solves, that addresses the need to have the highlights page. So that is kind of perfect. I had no idea what to do with this page. And so I'm really happy to have that as a solution. I think it works so well. And then the next thing in here is the goals and intentions page. As you can see, it's a really simple list, and I don't need anything fancy for it. And so I was just going to add it to the back on one of the grid pages. I will just add it here, and I think I'll just split it in half. Really, I don't need intentions, but it's just kind of a nice to have to see like what I was struggling with in 2024 and what were my hopes for this year. And it's just a really nice way to kind of read back on like, okay, this is what I really wanted for myself, the intention I wanted for myself for this year. And I can kind of reflect on it to see how I'm tracking, to see if I'm actually making progress. And I really feel like I have made a lot of progress. So it's a really, I don't know, just a really small like self-care, gentle reminder of like, yes, I have my actual goals that I want to do for the business and, you know, some reading goals, but then I have those goals that are a little bit harder to track. And so I call those intentions. This is like not necessary at all. It's just a nice to have. And then at the top there, I have my theme for the year. So I could very easily just turn this into a goals intentions page with my theme of the year there. I could make it pretty, but I'm probably just going to keep that very, very simple. So that's where I'm going to put goals and intentions. I also have letter to future self and a mood board here. I haven't quite decided where I'm going to put that, but there's nothing really stopping me from just writing it. I think I might put that in my life archives, which I will show you, but it seems a bit more of a life archives thing. So I'm happy to separate that. I don't feel strongly about that being separated. I don't really feel like I need too much of a mood board because I feel like I could easily just use this again for 2026. My mood boards don't really change too much. I'm like inspired by the same things always, things that kind of inspire me to slow down and enjoy the simple things that I love and having a clean desk. That's pretty much it. But yeah, that's how the planner starts. So it goes with letter to self and mood board, which I will leave out for next year or put it in my life archives. I've got goals and intentions, which I will put on the blank grid page. Then highlights, which I'm combining on the first monthly page, that blank page at the beginning of each month, and do a sort of like matrix system there. So that's the highlights. And then after the highlights, I had the quarterly plan, but as you can see, I didn't use it at all. But if I needed to, I will create another grid matrix to add in a quarterly plan. So plenty of flexibility there. Monthly stats, I don't have space for. So I still need to think about where I want to put this. I can probably just, again, create another kind of grid for it. And that's probably the easiest way. I only track Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon growth. And I could write it on each month, but I like seeing the month to month comparison rather than needing to flip to each month to see. I'm just trying to see. I also have this page here. Actually, goals and intentions would go there. I forgot about this. So there is a grid page, like double spread grid page right after the weeks before the dailies. And I think that would really work for goals and intentions. And I don't know. I think goals and intentions here and maybe quarterly plan. Just a really rough one. And then Instagram and YouTube. Either I print off something to stick in the back, but I want to keep this planner as thin as possible. So I'm not trying to stick anything in here, but I'll probably just draw something out. You know, it's easy with the grid. I can just, create a little table for that. I don't think there's any kind of ready-made templates at the back I could use for stats. I mean, kind of. I could actually kind of use this, but it would, like I was just thinking, can I split up these portions, like split them into separate graphs? I could. All right, so this is not going to be completely accurate because my stats have different scales. Actually, they're not too far off. They're in the 9,000s, but Patreon is 60. What I could do is split this into 3. I could overlap it, but I think it might get too messy. I split this into 3-ish sections. And what I do, so for example, Patreon could be here. I just kind of find a scale. I don't think I grow more than like 10 I might make it like 20 to be safe. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, right? And so if I start at the base of like, I don't know, I really have to think about this to make it like accurate, but I could start at like 60, and if I go to 65, it's just visual. It doesn't have to be totally to scale. It's just for my own visual purposes, so it doesn't have to be, mathematically accurate, but I could just track the growth up and down and figure out some sort of scale and just write the number on top. That could work, and then have the little table down here to show the growth each month. Oh, I really like that. I really like being able to see the graph. I think that'll be cool. So I will have Patreon in this top section up here, and then I will use maybe YouTube and Instagram because I think it'll grow a little bit more. Like if you see here, it's growing by 21, 14, whereas Patreon's only like 9, 5, 3, 1. Much more smaller growth, so it only needs that much space. And then YouTube, plus 188, 285, 127 sometimes. So I will use this bottom one for YouTube, Instagram, and Patreon and have that visually. I'll just need to spend some time figuring out the scale for that. And then at the very bottom is where I think write Instagram. What was the order? Patreon, Instagram, YouTube, and then January to December along here. So it matches the scale. And then I can see it says like, I don't know if this is making any sense, but for example, -1, -9, -5, it would go -1, -9, -5, +3, -1. Like I will show the actual growth number here. I like that a lot. All right. Thank you for being here, for witnessing that little epiphany of mine. So that replaces the monthly stats, which is perfect. And I get to have a nice little visual. That's going to be fun to do. And then monthly income, I decided not to put it in here anyway. And I just kind of, I might fill it in after the fact, but I have everything digital for my monthly income anyway. So this is okay. I decided not to use this. And then the book spread. So this is one thing I can't do, but I'm actually okay with this because this got really finicky. I love how this looks. It's so satisfying to see. As you can see, I didn't even fill it in. Again, I already have this on Notion, so I'm thinking it's just too finicky. Like I don't like how it feels with the little corners lifting up, even though it looks beautiful. I did get a little bit better at filling out the books here, but I might just do this digitally, like either in GoodNotes or just stick with Notion. So I'm actually, I'm not too fast that I can't print out the covers, but I can still list out the books that I read in 2025 using my 100. So I don't typically read over 100 books, so I think this should be enough. And if not, that's fine. I will just, I don't know, stick a piece of paper in or like tip in something to write more. But I will list the books that I have read here. And I think that works really well for it. It should be just enough. And I could write the rating in here if I wanted. But as you saw, I didn't really, write it in there anyway. And I keep all of that stuff on Notion, so that works. And then after the books, kind of in 2025, we get to the monthly overview. And I've already talked about that. That's going to go right before every single month. I'm going to split that into that matrix. And then after each month overview, I believe that's it. I think we just get into the 2025 in pictures, which I can probably just do in the life archives, which I'll talk about soon, but that's it. That's the overview planner. So this planner is going to be replaced. So this is going to get taken out and I will only have the Japanese and the life archives in here, which I think works. 3 was getting a little bit thick anyway. So I am so pleasantly surprised that this Hobonichi Cousin replaces 4 planners for me. Like it's more of an all-in-one. And I really think like it's not necessarily better. It's just what I need at this stage of my life. I really need to simplify things because I felt really, really overwhelmed this year, and having everything in separate planners didn't really help. And so being able to combine everything for 2026, I think will be a huge game changer. And And there is the disadvantage of not being able to use different planners. So like I'm using the one planner for everything. So it's not as exciting to use different planners, but I think I just need to simplify for 2026 so I can actually just focus on the work, because there are two things I kind of realized this year about myself. One is that I absolutely despise backlogging. I really, really despise it, no matter how much I try to make it work. So anything that can help me eliminate backlogging and just prevent it so that I'm always up to date with things. You know, sometimes it's inevitable, but any more than like being a couple of days late to backlog something, I really don't like the process at all. And the other thing I realized about myself is I really like blank pages. I thought I would always be lined, dotted, or grid, but I have really, really enjoyed blank pages, which I will talk about very soon when it comes to the commonplace. But that is the Hobonichi Cousin, which is really turning into an all-in-one planner. I'm using Midori index clips that I picked up in Japan just to mark out the monthly and the weekly. What did I do? The monthly and the weekly? Oh, it's on this side. The monthly and the weekly. I experimented putting it on the left side, but I just confused myself twice. So I think that doesn't work. I think it needs to go on this side because I just flipped to it and didn't know where I was. So I'm going to move this to here. I just thought it'd be in the way and the side was less on the way, but I just confused myself. And here I'm just kind of mocking up like how I would use this, because I just really like the idea of splitting the weekly vertical into different sections. So I was just testing how that would work. I anticipate this will all change, but you know, I just got excited and wanted to plan that out. These pages are super thin, so it's actually kind of hard to put this clip on without ripping it. Okay, I'll do that later, but that is the Hobonichi Cousin. That is the very first planner that I am using that replaces 3 things. The next thing is the 5-year diary. I don't have too much to say about this. Oh, by the way, I did get my Hobonichi from Amazon Japan. It came in like less than a week. It was about 58 Australian dollars. It was fairly affordable for me compared to buying it in stores. So if I had a trip to Japan, I would have just bought it in Japan, but I didn't have any trips this year. So I just bought it from Amazon Japan. I also bought this from Amazon Japan in 2023. And the brand is Takahashi. I remember there was no branding on here, but I will put it up on the screen. But I'm pretty sure it's Takahashi Shoten. I think that's what the brand is. There is so much space in here, and I actually have been neglecting this book a little bit, but I still love it, and I still definitely want to continue using it. I've been doing my best, and you know, this is this year, so 2025. I definitely have been good with some days, but I do have some moments where, you know, I struggle to fill it out. That is today. And I try to have a morning routine where I sit down, write in the temperature, and then fill out the day before. If I'm good, I fill it out during the day, but generally I fill it out the day before. But it's been really, it's been better than last year because I get to read what happened this time last year. So I feel like it's just going to get better and better because you get to read back on so many years of memories. There's still plenty to catch up, which is a December goal for me, but yeah, I still love this planner. I'm so glad to have like tiny little memories, and it's just been fun sharing that with my husband because there's definitely been memories that we've already forgotten. And at the front is where I kind of just write down the orders, but I have not been keeping up with that, which is fine. I can always go back and do that. That won't take too long, but hopefully I'm a little bit more consistent with this in 2026. So we're going to be halfway through it. So it's the same planner. It came with the clear case, and you can also find this in Japan. So when I went to Japan, I saw this planner in store as well. But I really liked it because it was really minimal and it wasn't too colorful on the inside. It's just black. There's no colorful tabs. So I really preferred this to the other 5-year diaries on the market. And yeah, it's just really nice and simple. So that's a 5-year diary. And the next thing we're going to talk about is the life archives, which is in the TN. So I'm currently I need to give some background context to this. So in 2025, this year, I decided to combine life archives and daily log. And it started off as writing the log on the side and then putting the photos on the right side. And I would just talk about this. And so this is what the life archives used to look like. It was just photos and then words about those photos, or like what happened. And that was kind of the layout that I was going with. And eventually it got, since I was doing this every day, there were definitely some days where like nothing happened, and I would try to fill it out. It was a good challenge. I would try to fill it out with like little things like, this is a video I posted, this is a book that I was reading, I got this delivery. And like there's always little moments, even something digital like a screenshot, there's always little moments to talk about. But it was a lot of writing every single day. And, sometimes I would end up doing just one photo. Sometimes I had nothing to say because I already talked about it here. And so, yeah, it quickly got a little bit too hard to keep on top of. It was good when I had 4 photos, but eventually, as you can see, lots of blank days, but I was also moving, so it was a busy time. Eventually, I decided to switch to 1 day per page. Instead of trying to fit everything on a double spread, I'm trying to find where I did it. Okay, so I think this was the last. Oh yeah, no, this is right. So this is only Monday, and then this is only Tuesday. And then what I would do is same thing, daily log, but print a photo and keep it up in the corner. And I was able to fill it out so much easier. There was a lot less backlogging. And I really liked the look of it. It was just a lot easier to keep up with. But I then struggled with printing out the photos on time and sticking that in. And I kept leaving space for the photos and needing to backlog that. And as I have mentioned, I do not like backlogging. And so I really tried and I really liked it. I really, really do like it. But I have to go with what is sustainable for me. And so this just was not. Most of these photos, I'm pretty sure I stuck in after the fact, but I kept leaving pages for like things happened on this day and I really wanted to write about it. But because I think just stuck backlogging, it just wasn't a nice layout. And it would look like this. I would leave a space, I would put a post-it note there and write around it. And that would work. But then I think it slowed me down a lot. And so what I eventually thought was, as I got towards the end, as you can see, no photos, as I started getting towards the end of the journal, I decided to just skip the photo and just put text in. I get there eventually. There we go. I skipped the photo. I just went back to my original daily logging, which I did in 2024, which was in that A5 big blue hardcover journal. But I just started doing text and stickers, and that is it. And it was a lot easier, and I didn't feel like I had to, still have some days, but I didn't feel like I had to backlog. It was just done. But I still had photos I wanted to post, and I've actually finished this journal, and I can talk about this in a future video. But I have finished this, so this is all done in my Stellology, and I loved this thing so much. But I still had photos and memories that I wanted to post. But now I didn't feel as much pressure to need to have a photo every single day. And I could just talk about the moments that I like. I could be a little bit more selective about what I memory kept. And so this insert is from Marcsmellow. She makes inserts in Sydney. I picked it up from her at a market. But this only had 32 pages, which is less than a TN insert. So I felt like it was a perfect opportunity to try the life archives. I really wanted to experiment with it and try to finish this by the end of the year. I'm still planning to do that, to see whether it worked for me in 2026. And I ended up having a really, really good time with it. And the other main thing I should say is that I missed having a place for ephemera and junk journaling and just being a little bit more free. And this is a lot closer to how I travel journal. And because I didn't travel at all this year, I felt like I really missed out on the freedom of junk journaling and travel journaling. And so I went back to separating the life archives, but doing it in a slightly different way. So I've got photos in here. I've got, junk ephemera in here, and it's just been a lot of fun. And this is a very occasional journal, so it's fine if I don't print out the photos until later. I'm just talking about market prep here, and then Sydney made, a market I had in October. It's basically just a travel journal, but for my daily kind of memories. And I now have a place for ephemera because I didn't want to put it in the daily log too much. You saw that there was a few, but it bulked it up way too much. And this planner was already getting too big and hard to write in, so I didn't want to put too much in there. And so this solves that problem because this is, a thinner insert. I guess my main takeaway was that I needed to separate the creativity and the daily planning. I can't have creative daily planning because in the day-to-day, I'm just trying to get things done most of the time. And so I really need just like a no-nonsense planner, which is going to be the Hobonichi Cousin now. And the creative stuff, in order for it to be sustainable for me, should go somewhere else. That might change in 2027, who knows? But for now, it can't be daily. Weekly, maybe, but I wouldn't be able to keep up with this daily. And so separating it into the life archives, I feel like was such a good decision. I really am having so much fun in this. It's only been, a couple of pages in here, but I think it works. And I've already pre-printed some photos that I need to catch up on. And so I have a bunch of this 4x6 photo paper. And so I'm just going to keep using this until I run out of that and then figure out what to use next. It is a little thicker than I would like for a journal, but it's fine. It's such a thin insert that I don't mind bulking it up at all. And this is very much backlogging, but backlogging for memories is not as bad. Backlogging daily log was horrible for me. I did not like that, but backlogging memories is not so bad. That being said, I still don't want to fall that far behind. So I'm still more behind than I would like to be. But because the layout, I get to have so much fun with it, I don't mind. It feels much more creative rather than a chore I have to do. So that is the Life Archives insert that I've been experimenting with in October. And I think I will definitely, I want to finish this one by the end of the year because this is just towards the end of October. We've got November, December. I think I could definitely fill this up, especially with the market coming up in December in Melbourne. I think I'll just put it in here and it'll fill up really quickly. But once I finish this, then I think I'm going to go into a tan lightweight paper insert. I think just because it's blank, and as I realized this year, I like the blank. The blank actually works really well for me because I think it gives me more freedom to be messy, to ignore the layout, and it just gives it a more natural, messy look, which I really enjoy. So that is the Life Archives insert. And next on the list was the Japanese study in the TN grid. So I'm just going to talk about that. So if we flip to this, this is technically not a TN insert. It's some generic insert, but it's blank. And I did say I like blank, but not for Japanese. I keep contradicting myself. Not for Japanese study because I need lines, I need grid, and I need that structure. And I think I want a margin for Japanese study. So I'm also going to try and finish this by the end of the year. I'm on spread 16 or page 16? No, spread 16, and there are 28 spreads, so not too much left. And I have a bunch of Duolingo screenshots I need to put in here and catch up on to write down. But having a Japanese study journal has really accelerated my learning, I think, because I need to write things down in order to remember it better. But it's just amazing for reference, and I did bring this with me to Japan. And so, once I finish this, I will go into a TN grid because Japanese study is one of those that I don't want to put into a blank. I need actual structure for that. That is like slowly what I'm realizing. When I want creativity, I want blank. When I need structure, I need lines. So that is the Japanese study insert. Very simple, but they both will belong here in my TN cover. And then next is my commonplace. So in 2024, I talked about using this as my commonplace. So this is my second commonplace book. The first one I used was in a slightly bigger moleskin journal, and it was lined. And I wanted to move into a grid because it just made it easier to draw lines. And I thought this was perfect. It's a 4mm grid with a really light grid with Tomoe River paper. But I struggled in this journal so much. It didn't feel good. That's all I can say. I can't explain why, but it just didn't feel good. And I think it was slightly too thin for the commonplace. It wasn't, I guess, messy or relaxed enough. And like, I loved being in here, but the feeling of writing in here wasn't working for me. I still love these initial pages and what I wrote, so it's still quite precious to me, but it wasn't working. And so I eventually decided to turn this into, where did I start it? Here. I turned it into a book notes book. And I don't know if you can see this writing compared to like this. I started writing a lot bigger. I stopped using fountain pen in here because it was not helping with being like more free. And I know commonplace is not necessarily like a creative journal, but I still felt like the lines were really restricting. And 4mm, like I used 4mm in the Hobonichi, and that was fine when I tested that out. And for planning, it works well. But when I'm writing longer sentences, more long form, it didn't work. And so what I tried to do was use like a line and a half, and I ignored the line height just a little bit and spaced it out more. But I thought just writing book notes was a great way to just use up the pages. So I was reading the Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle, and there were a lot of kind of quotes I wanted to write down and write notes about it. And I took up a lot of pages. But this is still not my favorite way to write notes, because it might look good, but reading back, like referring back to it, I don't think my writing is the easiest to read compared to like printing out a quote like this. And so if I'm trying to write down quotes like this, it does take a little bit of effort to read, in my opinion. For me, it's not very nice. And so I didn't love that. I loved writing it down, but I didn't necessarily love how much harder it was to read back. And so I did mention this, I believe, in the last techo kaigi, my rings planner for book quotes. And I do want to get back to this. I just keep forgetting about it, and there was a lot to catch up on. So that's what I'm hoping. I want to streamline books so that I have more time for the ones I want to spend time in. And this is one of them. Is this backwards? No, here. So I started this, but I haven't made much progress with it, but I still love it. And I still want to be in here because it feels right. I feel this is much easier to read quotes back. And because I'm writing down the quotes so that I can read it back, this makes so much more sense to me. And any excuse to use my typewriter. So this is written on my typewriter. I fed the paper in. Loose leaf works so well for that. And after I read a book, I will go back and write the quotes in. So it's meant to be like after the book. But I was reading Middlemarch. I still am. And I don't know where I put it. I don't think I put it in here. Okay, I found it. So I typed up a quote that would have taken me a really long time to write out, but also wouldn't have been very legible. It's much clearer to see here. And then I would write personal notes about it underneath. And this felt like the perfect in-between. So it's kind of combining both things, the typewriter quotes and also the notes. I haven't quite figured out this system yet because I don't know if I like doing this in the middle of reading. Because if I'm reading in bed, I can't really go to my typewriter and type it out. And so I've just been underlining it in my book. And so I kind of will have to do it after the fact. So I haven't quite figured out the method for it, but this would work for the books that I study at my desk in the morning with coffee. So the Nicomachean Ethics was one of them. There's a few philosophy books I want to get through. So I'm probably not going to be reading those at night. Middlemarch falls in the middle a little bit because it's a fiction book that is fun, but there's a lot in it that I want to unpack as well. So I'm not very consistent with it. I just had this one quote I had to write down. I loved it, but this is still a work in progress. This is probably the one thing that I'm not too sure about. Like, it works, but I don't have any kind of consistent routine in place for it yet. But that is what I'm thinking, that I type up the quotes and then I can write underneath, because I feel like, yes, this is a lot easier to see and read and skim than this. For notes, it's fine because it is relevant to the quote itself. But that is what I'm going to be working on and hopefully have time for in 2026. Again, it's only for specific books. I don't do this with every single book. Some books are for entertainment, some books are for learning, and some books are in between. But that is my upcycled, repurposed commonplace into a book notes book. And I would, try my best to use up the rest of it. It's a lot of pages though, so we will see how I go with that. Another thing I thought was that I type it out on a piece of paper and stick it in, or print it out just on normal paper and stick that in. But there is that issue of printing out to slow me down. Printing out will slow me down a little bit, but that is my book notes quotes book, which I kind of skipped ahead because I was talking about the commonplace, but this is number 7, my book notes quotes book, which hopefully will just be in the rings. The reason why it works in the rings is because I can take out the pages and put it into the typewriter for one. But the other thing is that if I'm reading multiple books at the same time, if I'm using a book, I'm kind of stuck reading that specific book and I can't start writing notes about another book because I'm in the middle of another book. And so with the loose leaf paper, I get to stop and start anywhere. So that really works when I'm book stacking and I'm reading multiple books. So I think that works really well for that. But instead of this as a commonplace, because it was not working for me, I moved into this book. And this was my notes book. This was initially just where I was writing notes, personal essays, just long form thoughts that didn't go in my morning pages or my daily log. And so it was just really random thoughts that came to me. And this is when I realized I loved the blank pages because I could just scribble and it was great. So it's mostly just personal essays in here. And I kind of felt confused. I'm I don't know if this should go in the commonplace or not, but I want a commonplace to be research, but also my personal thoughts because it's all just it is kind of a combination of commonplace and just personal essays. So it's not the strict definition of a commonplace. But I was spending a lot of time in this and I was kind of using it for notes as well, just random to-do lists and video ideas. So as you can see, it was in November 2024. And it was getting a little bit mixed up, but it worked. It worked really well. But then I decided I think this should just be my commonplace because I spent so much time in here and I wanted to combine, for just reasons that make sense to me, the commonplace and my personal essays. And so I think it started after, these are notes for video notes, more video notes and just random to-do lists. And then I did a podcast. I wrote notes from the podcast, which is very commonplacey, but also very notesy. I just got confused with my definitions. And then I eventually realized I wanted to just be in here as my main journal and it works really well. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It just made sense. And so that's why I swapped the commonplace into here eventually. Oh, and I was writing book notes in here initially. I actually totally forgot that. I was reading Ethics of Ambiguity by Simone de Beauvoir. And I really liked being able to just scribble in here quickly in between my kind of random thoughts. And I think because I liked this so much, yes, I liked doing this so much, I decided that I should have a book notes journal. But then I was thinking, am I just kind of is it getting lost in my random notes? Because then I would write it at different times, right? Depending on when I would read it. So I thought it needed to be separate. And I think for book notes, it needs to be separate because if I want to refer back to it, it's going to be a little bit messy trying to flip through everything and seeing where I wrote Ethics of Ambiguity. But when I decided to swap it, it just works so well. So here is another one from a newsletter and I just wrote down some notes from there. And I wrote, this is the commonplace. So I kind of had that epiphany in September. And I have not turned back since. It has worked so well. I don't know if you can tell, but I just I feel like I thrived being in here because I felt so free to just stream of consciousness right. It was almost a little bit more structured of a morning pages. And it was more themed rather than just like rambling about anything. This was on a video that I watched. I like circling the heading because it stands out to me really, really clearly. Random thoughts. And it's becoming kind of like the commonplace where I stick photos in. I liked sticking in this little silly photo because it just, I don't know, it made me happy. So this is a poem that I found on the internet, but little external thoughts, but internal. So this is like an everything book. Things that I'm thinking about, but external things that make me think. And they really make sense together. It might not make sense for other people, but in my head, those two things do work together because they kind of influence each other. And so, yes, I will happily keep using this in 2026. I don't like hardcover, so I definitely won't be getting another of these. But I think this size works really well for notes. And so as a commonplace book, I think I will get the thinner moleskin book. I think that comes in a pack of 3, and also get the blank version because it just works so well for what it is. I'm realizing now that it's not just all grid that works for me or all lined. It needs to be a mix of like to fit different purposes. I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit, so I need to speed this up. But that is my new commonplace journal, which was repurposed from the notes book. And then as you saw, I started using this little book as my notes book because I wanted to carry it around, but this was a bit too big to carry around. And I also wanted to separate random thoughts like this, like to-do lists. And I felt like once I made this the commonplace, it was just kind of longer form thoughts and contents and again, personal essays and just random notes and reminders. Kind of falls into like a scribble book. So it's almost just like a little book that I carry around to write down any thoughts I have when I'm, out and about. So I usually write this at a cafe or just little notes I need to scribble down to remember for myself. So that's why I wrote the 2026 techo kaigi. And this is working really well. And I was wanting to experiment with this because I wanted to maybe get a passport TN in 2026 to keep around as a wallet, as an everyday carry, to have just my notes book in there, a place for receipts. I've been kind of experimenting with that. I can't go into it too much or I'm going to lose my voice because I will talk about this forever, but I have been keeping receipts in here for bookkeeping, and I keep my passport on me. I know that's silly, but I keep my passport on me for ID, and I kind of just slot this in here and just throw this in my wallet. So this is normally what would be inside a TN cover, but because I don't have the TN cover yet, I do want to get the passport one of this zip case to test out. But I already had this in my TN standard, so I took it out and just put it in my bag to see how I liked it. As you can see, I've got my receipts in here, so it's already working. It's much tidier. But I have a bunch of these little notebooks like in similar sizes anyway. So I just have a thing with little notebooks. I think they're so cute. So it's a good way for me to test out the passport-ish TN size to see if it works for little notes. And so far, I think it has. Like I've had this book for, I think 10 years, and this is the first time I'm finally using it. But it's just like a whatever book to quickly jot down tasks, and it's been working really well. As you can see, I don't use it very much, but when I need to, it's there to write down quick notes for business mostly. So I have a bunch of these. I've got a set of these, and then this one I bought from Japan. So I don't know yet I think it would be a TN grid, but I kind of love the idea of blanks still. So when I do get a TN passport, I will get a blank insert for the notes and that zip case for my receipts. But yeah, that's just my notes book. I get to use up existing books, so that's great, but nothing really more to be said about this. Again, it's just quick notes that are on my mind, quick to-do lists that I need to write down. Any ideas that I have, just quickly jot it down so I don't have to think about where to put it. And it's a really quick, easy reference. But that is my notes book. We've already talked about my book notes and quotes book and the rings. And then the very last thing, we finally got there. The very last thing is my morning pages. And there's not too much I need to say about this because I have no new thoughts about it, but it just works so well. I can't really show you without showing you, but I can show you the top of it. There you go. Can you see that? Just to prove that I have written stuff down in here. I promise it's not blank. I have written on this from the beginning. I will eventually go in and stamp the date when I started, when I finished, but This is just like it's a part of my daily routine. I do it about 4 days a week because I'm not home on Fridays, so I don't do it on Fridays. And on the weekends, my routines are a little bit different in the morning. So I only really do it Monday to Thursday. And it has been so kind of crucial to my creative practice, and it really helps me get out my thoughts because I am an overthinker. I definitely ruminate, and this really helps me just get my mind onto the right page. Like I'm clearing my mind, processing any lingering thoughts from the previous day, dumping everything out. This is a very inelegant, rambly book for me, but it works so well. And I know that because on the days I don't do it, I feel a little bit more frazzled. I feel like I haven't processed my thoughts. And so this really gives me a chance to sit down, check in with myself. What's on my mind? How do I feel? Am I feeling a little bit annoyed at something that I haven't kind of addressed? Am I repressing something? So this is just, Morning Pages is just my morning check-in book. How do I feel right now? Where am I holding tension in my body? Is there anything I'm nervous about? Let's talk it out. So that is the Morning Pages book. I wanted something cheap, but thick, so I didn't have to have multiple of these, and this has been perfect. I didn't think this would last me the entire year because it's only 184 pages, but because I'm not writing in here every single day, and when I travel I miss days like markets and stuff, it's been perfect. So I hope they never ever discontinue this. It's blank, so it's fine for Morning Pages. I use fountain pen in here, and technically it's not fountain paper friendly. There's definitely some bleeding, but like it's a messy, perfect book for me. So I consider it fountain pen friendly. So I'm using black ink in here in my fountain pen because I'm trying to use up that bottle, and black is just like not a super exciting color for me. I usually use brown in my daily log. So yeah, it's a perfect way to use up old pens as well. Before I got to my fountain pens, I was using up really ugly old pens in my Morning Pages. So yeah, it's just such an unfussy book that is fun, it's self-care, and I have no complaints. So I'm going to pick up another one when I get a chance to visit Muji next, the exact same book, and I'll just stick something else on top. But that is the final journal, and my voice is totally at its limits. But let me bring back everything again. We've got Morning Pages, we've got, how do I do this? My notes book, we've got my TN, we've got my book notes, the 5-year diary, the Hobonichi, that's upside down, and the notes book. So this is still pretty much the same thing that I'm using this year. Nothing really has changed except what I use it in. So I like swapped things around. But I'm really, really happy with my layout because I know it already works. You know, I'm not really changing anything except for the Hobonichi. And of course, things will change as life changes, so it's hard to know what works or not until the year actually comes. I'm trying to show you this in a nicer way. So this is the lineup. I know a few people have recommended that the Hobonichi Cousin should be in a clear or it will get damaged, so when I get a chance I'll buy a clear cover for this. But that is everything. I hope I've covered it all. Again, I know it was quite rambly, but I will do a video with the printing guide on the overview planner if you're curious about that, if you wanted to use that as a separate planner, because I have that as a printable. And I will also do another video closer to the end of the year on the journals that I have finished in 2025, because there are a few, and it's just nice to also celebrate the journals that you've used up and just talk about the takeaways from that. As always, I would love to hear what you're using, if you're using any of these, or, you know, the system is similar in any way. But I really, really, really appreciate you being here. So if you've made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for putting up with all of my rambling. But I feel so grateful to be able to just ramble on about my journals. It's so much fun. And I really appreciate your comments and you just being here. So thank you so much for watching. That is everything. I know that was pretty long, but I hope it was helpful or at least a little entertaining. But let me know if you have any questions in the comments and I will get around to that. But I hope you're excited about your planner lineup as well. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!